Good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get things kicked off here so we can stay on schedule. Thanks for joining us here this morning. My name is Ryan McFarland, and I'm going to be the moderator of today's panel. We'll be discussing cannabinoids in food and beverage and what's going on with the market trends, innovations, what the market holds for the future. And we'll be going through talking with some of our panelists here and letting them introduce themselves, their companies, and we'll talk about some insights and hopefully be able to provide a lot of value and education to everybody out in the audience today. Should we do a big cheer and wake up the rest of the hotel so we get people in? I know, that's right. Well, I'm certainly excited to be back in conferences and seeing people face to face instead of Zoom for the last year and a half. So who else is excited out there that we actually get to see face to face? That's pretty awesome. Definitely want to give a shout out to Mace Media for putting on this event so quick. One of the first ones out to have an event up and ready after restrictions have lifted. So that's been pretty awesome. So appreciate all the work that they've done bringing everybody together here. So just a little bit about myself. So I'm a CEO and co-founder of Where's Hemp. We are a publisher of market data in the space, been in the business since about 2018. We basically took the approach of really data on the side of CBD. We saw a unique opportunity with big tech platforms making it extremely difficult to market CBD and cannabis companies as a typical company could. So we started building up market data through public records. We built the largest LinkedIn group in the space. We have about 25,000 members in that. And we pull a lot of data from that, as well as new licensees coming in. And we've built a unique way to market to these companies and also facilitate deals. So, right now it's obviously tough marketing your company, getting your product or service to market in front of your target audience. So we've developed a way to do that for companies as well as facilitate deals for connecting buyers and sellers and things of that nature. So really just focusing on business intelligence, competitive intelligence, sales intelligence, and facilitating deals. We just ended up closing a £2.5 million tolling deal that's going to be processed here throughout the rest of 2021 for one of our facilities. So that was a good accomplishment that we're very proud of. And we'll be continuing that for the remainder of the year. But David, do you want to start? Introduce yourself, a little bit about your company?
Yep. Is that on? Yeah? Or I don't know. Yeah, my name's David McLaughlin. I live in Boulder, Colorado. And I started Sativa Organics back in May of 19 with a line of tinctures, topicals, sprays. While we were formulating Sati soda, which took about 6 months to formulate. We launched the soda in October of 2019. We went on the following weekend after we launched to the CBD Expo in Denver and won CBD Best Beverage. So we felt good. We had something that people really liked that tastes good. I started the soda line because the drinks on the market to me just didn't taste good. And I'm not going to spend $4 or $5 on something that doesn't taste good. So it was pretty simple, but hired a PhD food scientist to help us with the formulation. So it's not just a sugar water with some CBD added. It's got really clean, organic, functional ingredients in it. And yeah, it's exciting. We launched, so it's been about 18 months since we launched the soda. And when we launched the soda, we decided to discontinue the line of the other products to really zero in and become known as the healthy soda company. And since we've zeroed in our focus, we now have a couple dozen distributors around the country. We're in about 2,000 retail locations. Even without any really big box stores, we've got a few grocery stores of about maximum like 12 locations, but most of it's all independent. And which has its challenges as far as how quickly you can grow, but it's also people love the brand, they love the product. The feedback's been amazing, and it's been a really fun ride so far.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Blair, how about yourself?
Hey there, I'm a pharmacist from the Atlanta, Georgia area, and I've been studying cannabinoids or so since Washington and Colorado legalized recreational cannabis. And I've been studying a lot of that stuff throughout the years, got my PhD in pharmaceutical sciences, so I can understand exactly what's going on pharmacologically and also from a formulations perspective on making sure we can get the products in the right delivery system for the treatment that we will be using for at least improving the quality of life for the patients and the customers. So I've been involved with the Georgia Cannabis Industry Alliance as a chief science advisor. We're politically involved there, getting things changed in Georgia for recreational and, of course, for hemp. I look forward to speaking to you all, and this is going to be a great panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Joel, please announce yourself and your company.
I'm Joel from Gattaca, the CBD chocolate company. Gattaca is a sub-brand of Dar chocolate. So to begin with, we are chocolate makers. So we make bean-to-bar chocolate. We make the chocolate from scratch, from cacao that we source. It ethically traded and organic. And we learned that, as David said before, it has to be, things have to taste good, and we believe that there can be more than one way to source or consume your CBD, and chocolate is one, definitely the most indulgent one. And we just learned recently that it's also, as a carrier, it's naturally well combined with CBD, since cacao itself contain cannabinoid, the cannabinoid which is an anandamide, and this is naturally, it's an endocannabinoid that's produced in the body, but the cacao has it naturally. So putting CBD in it makes it a good pairing and better absorbed or well absorbed in the body.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. Ian James?
Hi, I'm Ian James. I'm with the Ideation Lab and the Geordie Well. I would miss seeing you in Denver. I saw Joel in Denver. I was just out there last week, I think. Was it last week? Yeah.
2 weeks.
2 weeks ago. All time flies. I'm in a unique place where we actually work on hemp brands and services. So we've got several different channels we work in, the functional beverage line being one of them. Everything's plant-based wellness. So if you watch what's happening in the world today, you see that plant-based wellness, including hemp, adaptogens, nootropics, are all becoming very, very trend-driven. There is a large market out there. We're focused on that. We're really working to identify a number of different brands with whom we want to work. And we're created a partnership with Coffee Holding Company, recently a NASDAQ company, that allows us to scale very rapidly with commercialization and distribution. It's one of those places I think that everybody on this panel probably sees that, you've got a lot of major corporate, very big beverage and food companies that are coming out and coming into this industry. And so we're actually working with different brands to consolidate as much as possible, find ways that we can share services, reduce overall cost, but then build out a portfolio that can either have an exit in a private setting or in a public setting. Working with a NASDAQ company, I think you can see where my head is.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Definitely exciting what's happening in the food and beverage space. Obviously, waiting for the FDA to come out and actually rule so that big food and beverage can come in and play at a large scale. Obviously, it sounds like what you're doing. Maybe we'll just go right back to you and talk a little bit about, FDA. What is your point, and where do you see FDA ruling as it relates to food and beverage and adding cannabinoids
It's
in?
fascinating because we were actually in the middle of a reverse triangular merger with a NASDAQ company about 2 years ago, and it got sidelined by COVID. Well, guess what? With the FDA also got sidelined with COVID. So they were moving, not as quickly as I think any of us want, but they were moving towards some sort of guidance. And I think that really we're going to have to wait until Congress makes the move to ensure that there is guidance. I'm not sure that the FDA is going to this year be able to get its arms fully wrapped around guidance that's needed. I think that Congress can and will do that based on everything I'm seeing. My past life was working with Merv Griffin and working through governmental relations and advocacy. So I pay particular attention to policymakers and elected officials, and I can see that there actually is a will for this in Congress because this industry has an ability to drive billions of dollars in capital through the economy, has an ability to create a number of jobs, and it has the ability to satisfy consumer demand that is, I think everybody here would say, is pent up and wants more good tasting, quality and consistent food lines and beverage lines. And right now, I think to David's point earlier, your beverage is phenomenal. I've tasted probably about 20, 30, maybe Sarah here from my office would know too. 100. There are so many that are just really terrible. That yours is phenomenal, and I think that we're going to see as we get that guidance from the FDA that there's going to be a mass consumer push out there that's going to want to have something that tastes really good, that doesn't have the terpene taste and the more earthy taste that traditional cannabis and hemp consumers want. I think you're going to find more of a LaCroix sort of push on that, and that's one of the reasons we're actually in the process of working with Firmenich, Swiss flavor house to kind of tweak some of our brands. But
Yeah.
it's neat.
And so, FDA is obviously U.S. regulations, but novel foods in the EU have, already surpassed kind of FDA, right? So there's been a lot of positivity in the EU about, novel foods allowing CBD and cannabinoids to go into novel foods. And so with that happening, is anybody up on the panel here, looking at distribution channels, working in the EU? You just said you're working with flavor and formulations over there.
Yeah, we actually, our skincare line's Kanuka skincare line, and we're in the process of working to get on the London Stock Exchange with that skincare line. But we've been working in the EU and the UK in particular on all of this because it is fascinating how they've kind of hopscotch right over top of us and taking a very big push there. And we find that if you can work in the EU and the UK, you get into the EU, and your Asian market really does look to the UK and the EU and that kind of stamp of approval. And we believe there's going to be greater adoption of brands and consumption in the Asian market through those territories.
Thank you for that. Blair, talk to me about, what cannabinoids you're seeing that are hot going into food and beverage right now. Obviously you have CBD, but what about any other minors that are, going into food and beverage?
Yeah, the other ones that are going to be coming out, CBN is kind of getting there. Once you find companies that are able to create that without it being derived from THC itself, there are a few companies out there that are they're pushing their patents through right now in going from CBD directly to CBN without having to go through Delta-9 THC. So once you have those companies that are going to have those on the market, you will find CBN and CBG is the other one.
Okay.
That along with THC and CBD are the other ones that are within the beverages that I'm seeing.
Excellent. David, you have obviously your line of drinks in independent stores currently. Obviously pre-FDA ruling. What's the opportunity right now for companies coming out that want to put cannabinoids in food and beverage? How big is the market share? Like what is the opportunity pre-FDA, and then follow that up with kind of what your thoughts are for companies like yourself post-FDA ruling.
Right. Well, for us, we just figure that we do everything right as far as what we feel like the FDA is going to require. The QR code, going to our third-party testing and just our sourcing of ingredients and just all right, so that it's a safe product for consumers to consume. Because we do feel like it's going to happen. And so while the bigger corporations are still somewhat sitting on the sideline to wait for that to happen, we figured now's the time to really get after it, try and establish our brand out there in the market before a lot of other companies come in, right? But there is so much demand in so many places that I feel like, I mean, in Colorado where we live, Molson just created a CBD beverage, you know, a sparkling water, and they've obviously mostly focused on liquor stores because that's what they know. But so you got a big corporation like that, so it's happening, it's coming. And what's nice is like we're friends with Dram and Weller and some of these other companies, there's 0 grams of sugar companies, and so for people that like that, you know, there's something for them. So I just think that, just like what everyone's saying, I think there's a lot of room for creativity and different brands, different flavors. There's just people like all the different things, right? All the different ready to drinks that are on the market right now, from kombucha to sparkling water to regular soda. What we like and what we feel good about is people putting this in their body because we know it's good for them.
Sure.
Right. And we would love for people to maybe start, you know, drinking a sati soda or something like it than Dr. Pepper or Mountain Dew or, you know, some of those other drinks that maybe aren't so good for them.
Right.
So I think it's a great time for people to get involved. But I also think, like, you know, we got the best attorneys. They just happen to be in Denver, which is great. They're beverage attorneys, and like they went through everything with us right from the get-go. So you want to make sure that you're doing it right so that you're prepared and you don't have to spend a lot of money doing a lot of changes.
Right.
Right. It's like spend the money up front, figure out how to do it correctly, so you're not having to spend it, you know, on a dime, right?
Switching everything at the last minute.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It does roll.
Right?
It's kind of funny. It's not like, you know, food and beverage isn't new, right? You know,
Correct.
obviously there's existing regulations out there that the FDA has put in place for food and beverage, right?
That's
so,
it.
you know, as a company following those regulations now, even though they're not out, but just kind of forecasting that it is coming and it's going to be exactly the same as, you know, that's there.
And it's really just real quick on that. It's like most of the states in the country, I mean, the Fed, like, they haven't cracked down anywhere. They haven't come in and just taken it off. The Feds haven't. Certain states have.
Right.
Like New York came in last summer and they took them all off the shelf. Mm-hmm. So we only sell our hemp soda in Manhattan right now. You know, no CBD. They're issuing licenses for locations to sell it and for distributors to be able to provide it. Massachusetts, New Hampshire, a lot of these states are just still, they're not moving forward with CBD in beverages because of the Feds not making a ruling on it. Mm-hmm. But most states, they're like, this isn't hurting anybody. Sure. You know, let's just let them have at it.
Yeah.
Yep. So,
and Joel, with your brand, obviously you're doing, you know, the chocolates, right? And being a chocolatier and, you know, chocolate maker. You know, what's the opportunity? You know, like, what kind of distribution channels are you in now? Where do you think it's going to go after FDA? Is that going to open up additional distribution channels for you, or what's kind of the post FDA opportunity for brands and companies, would you say?
Yeah, so I think it's an interesting situation right now because as a small company or a small business, as long as the FDA doesn't come out with a regulation or the guidance, we have our time and opportunity to grow into the market while the big companies sit and wait. Mm-hmm. So on one hand, we want it to be regulated so we can be legal and we can have more channels of distribution. But on the other hand, we don't want the big companies to come into the market too soon. So right now we mainly sell in Colorado. We sell in some other states where it's legal, but and online sales, that would be our biggest channel right
Okay.
now.
Yeah, and so just to kind of talk about distribution, obviously you have the major distribution channels. Our company is one of the companies that focuses on what we call micro distribution channels. We found a really good niche using LinkedIn to basically target health and wellness companies, cryotherapy, gyms, yoga studios, massage therapists, all these different micro distribution channels where there's independent owners of companies, and we can target all these people using LinkedIn, right? So we basically find them on LinkedIn. We say, listen, we found a way to, increase your average customer visit, physical therapists, chiropractors, all these different companies that are in the health and wellness arena. And we start marketing to these people and basically putting wholesale lines in. So instead of going and finding one major distributor, go out there and try to find these micro distribution channels, go in and find these micro spots and, and close accounts. And so that's kind of what we've been doing with some of the brands that we're working with that, are looking to get into those kind of distribution channels. And so it's an interesting proponent, but certainly once FDA rules, then now you're playing against the big guys, so the big distributors that are going into their, tens of thousands of stores across the country and world for that matter. So, so what else are you guys seeing CBD in, right? You have obviously a bunch of different brands and product lines that you've been looking at. What are you seeing CBD go in?
So on the beverage side, it's obviously in seltzers. We're rolling out our coffee lines here shortly. I actually got some K-Cups here if anybody wants some. We brought, Sarah was gracious enough to package them last night at the last second when I said, hey, I need like several hundred of these packed up. We're tea. We'll be launching a tea line here soon. I think you're going to find in a lot of fruit and other kind of natural juices that comes with, as David knows, that comes with its own challenges, right? And just making sure that what you're putting in can stay fresh and shelf stable. And I think that's the other part of the equation here as we go forward, is that testing is so important. The shelf stabilization is critical. Being able to deal with buyers on mass is critical as well. We learned that lesson through Kanuka about 3 years ago, and how when we got into Macy's and we got into Neiman Marcus and we got into Ulta and then we hopped the pond over to the UK, it was like, oh my God, this is a whole different world for a lot of folks. But I think beyond that, you're going to start seeing it in really in wellness snacks. So obviously the chocolates are phenomenal. Joel makes great chocolates. If you haven't tried them yet, do try them because they are phenomenal. You're going to see that in everything from breakfast bars to, you're going to see entrees. And I think that at a certain point, because it's an agricultural commodity now under the Farm Bill 18, that we're going to start seeing, as guidance is given, this is going to be added to certain food products that are just going to be kind of normal. It's going to be very normalized. It's going to be like, vitamin D in milk. Well, they fortify it for a reason. So you could start to see, fortified with vitamin CBD in milk. Not that it's vitamin, but right? And believe me, about 4 years ago when I started talking about this, people thought I was nuts. And I said, you're missing what's actually happening. This is the future of food, and wellness is going to be the future of food. And when you have a pandemic, people are really very conscious of what they're putting into their body, and they're more conscious about their own, I think to your point, of quality of life and how they're going to sustain themselves. So, plant-based wellness that has hemp CBD, hemp CBG, CBN is going to continue to evolve, and it's going to continue to get into the food and beverage lines. And I think we're going to see it in a variety of other things. Pets, obviously, the pet treats. If you haven't tried to get CBD into pet lines yet, it's tougher to do than food, just because it's very, very difficult, but it's something that is achievable.
Excellent. So let's kind of shift the conversation to innovations. We've been talking about market share, and what's going on and what the opportunity is. Let's talk about some of the innovations that are happening. Water soluble, shelf life stability, stability testing, things like that. Blair, I want to direct this to you about water soluble formulations. Obviously, any kind of food and beverage, you're going to need that to go into it in some capacity. What are you seeing as far as innovations, as far as delivery systems and mechanisms to put CBD in to food and beverage.
Yeah, I was just looking at this, and I think a really cool way of increasing maybe shelf life would be to incorporate like a little pellet air thing like you would in a Guinness. You know, if you open up a Guinness or so, you pop it. It's already got a cartridge in there to make it nice and fresh. So if you have maybe a device in there to preserve everything before it hits water, because water is going to start degrading all that stuff. If you have a way of doing that, you'll have a really fresh delivery system and innovation way that way. Another thing, as you were bringing up for K-Cups, is you can have a machine that has maybe the raw materials or so at your house, and you can make it at home. You know, you can make your own strength, whatever works for you. You got to figure it out, but treat the patient. Treat whatever is going on with you.
Excellent, excellent. Anybody else have anything to talk about as far as shelf life stability testing that you guys have experienced or encountered?
Well, we use a non-GMO citric acid that we tested, and our PhD food scientists, recommended as far as stability. What's really excellent is the velocity of how. I mean, it's easily shelf stable for a year. We put a Best By date on there, but honestly, everything that gets made and it's out, I mean, it's consumed within 60 days.
Yeah.
It's the velocity of it is really pretty cool. One thing I should mention about like the aluminum can shortage was legit. Mm-hmm. I mean, we had to invest a lot of cash in making sure we didn't run out of cans.
Yeah.
And incredible how many big companies, deep pockets, their product was no longer on the shelf because they didn't plan or whatever reason, right? So Ball is building out 2 new facilities. They should be ready this summer. We've been on their list since last summer, and we finally just got the go ahead to, okay, we'll get started. But that still means we're 6 to 9 months away till we get our printed cans from them. Yeah. So there, as you were mentioning, there's so many moving pieces, and the demand and having the capital to keep up with the demand, and the ARs, like all of a sudden, you're growing, and all of a sudden these ARs are getting pretty sizable, yeah. Right? It's just it's a fun challenge, but it's a challenge, yeah. Right? And it's good to hire a consultant or somebody that can really see those things that you're just so in the weeds, you may not be seeing those things. So. Yeah. Anyway,
supply chains definitely got affected. There's no doubt about that. So all types of containers. Anybody using nano here? Talk about kind of what the benefits of nano are in water soluble. Are you using it in your chocolates at all, or any?
Well, we don't need water soluble because water and chocolate don't go well together.
Yes.
And chocolate has a shelf life. Many years if it's well stored. So we give 1 year, but no one keeps chocolate for that long. And we use the CBD in the oil form, the original, that because of the chocolate, because it has its own fats, it can only receive oils. So we don't really have issue with the shelf life.
Gotcha. Excellent. Ian, do you have any info as far as nano or delivery systems here?
It's odd because we've worked with both. We actually brought on a chemical engineer to help work through a lot of this, and so we've been looking at that. Nanotizing CBD is just breaking it down into smaller molecules, right? So it's got better bioavailability. So I think there's something there. I think we're scratching the surface on a lot of this. I think especially when you get into powdered sort of beverages and foods. So think everything from Kool-Aid to Tang or Nestea iced tea sort of things. And believe me, Nestea is actually looking at CBD because it's a Unilever brand. And I think you're going to also find it in things like sauces when they use nanotized CBD. I think that's probably some places actually going to come into vogue. And I know it sounds weird when you think about sauces, but think about, do you make gravy? If you're just having dinner, do you just open up a packet and throw it in with a cup of water and have gravy? I mean, that's Not, I grew up in Appalachia, so we did that a lot. But not everybody wants to make hollandaise sauce, fresh, although it tastes a lot better. Not everybody wants to make gravy fresh, but it tastes a lot better when you do. And I think you're going to find with nanotization that this is going to be something, especially with all those things and just in beverages in general, it's going to really begin to take off even more. It's getting bigger. It's like the internet. Someday it's going to be big.
Yeah, one of these days. As far as bioavailability is concerned, obviously you guys, food and beverage, you have to ingest it, right? What are you guys seeing? Is there a particular food or beverage or way to manufacture that's going to allow for a higher bioavailability? Anybody experienced that or would like to talk about that?
Yeah, I'd like to mention at least, the delivery system. Once the particles get really small, so if you have particle sizes that are being solubilized in there, so it's an oil and water mixture. So the particle sizes, if they're a lot larger, it's going to look murky, kind of like a cloudy mixture or so. But once you finally get down to that smaller size, it's got to be really small, less than 100 nanometers, I think. And it'll start to turn clear. But what it does is it essentially dissolves it so it can get into your system a lot easier. Those different type of technologies are going to allow better bioavailability, and especially with food. So if you consume this stuff with food, you can look at the Epidiolex package insert, and you'll find the same thing, that if you have it with food, it increases the bioavailability by 5 times. So it's right there. There's a lot of different ways for you to consume this and have it active in your body.
Yeah, so it's just kind of like, when are you taking it, right? Like all the current pharmaceutical, take it with food or without food or whatever it is. So same thing you're experiencing on cannabinoids and CBD, it should be taken and consumed with food.
Correct.
Okay, awesome. So let's talk about, kind of what the future is for cannabinoids and food and beverage. We've talked a little bit about it, going into the future. Obviously, a lot of it's going to depend on the FDA, as we've discussed. Talk about pricing. Where do you guys think the market's going to go as it relates to pricing now? Let's say, now as it is, obviously the wholesale markets has taken a pretty big dive. Hasn't really affected retail on that much, but we'll see wholesale prices go up, I think, this year quite a bit. But where do you see pricing in the marketplace on the retail sector going out to consumers? Who'd like to take that? Go ahead, Joe.
I believe that pricing will go down, and and the offer will be much wider. So we will find it in more and more food and beverages. It will be basically everywhere, and the more the offer, the price will be lower, and it will be more available and affordable to more people.
Excellent. Yeah, and kind of as the everything commoditizes, right, in the wholesale side, there's more options and more competitive, so prices will go down. Ian, do you have any insight as to
Yeah, having been in the hemp genetics world and had a company that we ended up closing because of COVID, I think there's such an overabundance of CBD on the market right now, from everything from raw oil to distillate to isolate. I see that the numbers are going to continue to drop. There's still a lot of biomass out there. There's, COVID did affect planting last year. It'll affect planting this year. So, someday that will probably even itself out. But I think the most recent, was New Frontiers had a study out there. It was like, there's so much CBD out there right now that if every human being in America consumed it every day at a certain quantity, you'd still have years of it left, right? So to Joel's point, that the price point of cannabinoids is going to drop, except for, I think, CBG and CBN is going to, because they're more rare and has different processes. That price point is going to stay up there, but like isolate before, it will also drop. I think the other parts that Dave was touching on are things that we have to, as manufacturers of food, be really cognizant of, and that's our cost of goods. Aluminum is finite right now, even though they can recycle it. It's odd. I'm glad you're not using sleek cans because sleek cans are like a third more per unit. It's nuts. I think that there's going to be a leveling off. There's also going to be, I think, just because of natural consolidation in the market that's happening, there are a lot of folks that, like I talked about earlier, that just have terrible tasting products, but they kind of get by. I think they're going to kind of go away. They'll still be there some respects, but I think that the really good producers and manufacturers of food and beverage who focus on quality, consistency, safety, good labeling, follow the compliance of your advice of your lawyers. Obviously, we have to make business decisions all the time, on how we go forward. You have to think through, like, do I want to sell in Manhattan, or do I want to sell in Manhattan with hemp? That the market's going to continue to pick up. Some of the costs of goods are going to go down, but like aluminum is going to go up. And I think that finding good, talented workforce is going to continue to be challenging for everybody for the foreseeable future. Just as we evolve, we're going to be asking people to do new things. And there's going to be some automation of the process. And there's going to be folks that will say, we used to do it differently. And I think that, that always comes with the good and the bad. There's the Luddite philosophy of, like, we did it well this way before, and why would we change? And there's the other side that says, but you want to get to a mass audience, and you want them to consume this, and you want them to enjoy it, and to see why we believe that this is a good product, and why we believe that CBD and other cannabinoids should be ingested and enjoyed. So it's gonna be a very interesting 3 or 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, that's without saying. Go ahead.
So what we're seeing, the big distributors, the Kihei's, the UNFIs, they're not touching CBD food and beverages. When they do, they demand the prices get negotiated. They take a chunk, right? Because they distribute to tens of thousands of locations, the big boxes. That will beat the price up some for sure. But the trade-off, like Joel said, it will be everywhere.
Right.
So that'll be it. Like, we created Sati hemp soda with organic hemp seed oil so that we could get our brand on Amazon, because they wouldn't accept our CBD soda, right? So, and it's worked. People really like it. It's quite a bit cheaper because there's no CBD in it. It tastes really good. It's the same formulation except for that, and it's gone well through Amazon.
So you're talking about price consolidations and price decreases. What should brands out there, either in the audience or listening at home, what should they do to, forecast and be ahead of the curve, so that when the what would you guys say is the key to be ready for that? Obviously now it's get market share, right? But how do you get ready when it is going to go everywhere?
You got to stay with for us anyway, we have a great supplier. The product's always consistent. They have all the certifications. It's totally, it's fantastic. So we've just stayed with them, and we get offered every other day, come buy our CBD. And I think it's really important to partner with somebody that you feel really good about, that you can really dig in and make sure they're doing it right, and there's a lot of great companies out there doing it right. So, but that's key, and the scalability, right? That they'll be able to keep up with the growth that you hope to have.
Blair, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I was going to get into Sweetwater Brewing down in Atlanta, Georgia, was just bought by Afria, Canadian cannabis company. So they purchased the Sweetwater Brewing Company back in November or December, and they're pretty much ready to go. So they have massive distribution, multiple lines of beers, and their greatest beer lines are 420 based. So they have all different types of terpenes and flavors already. They're just ready to go when everything is approved by the FDA.
Last thing I kind of want to touch on is capital markets. Has anybody tried to raise capital? Is there capital available for food and beverage companies right now? going out there to looking to launch? Has anybody raised capital? I know you've been doing a little bit. What are you guys seeing in the capital markets right now looking into food?
We did. My business partner and I, first we ponied our own money in to prove the concept and got sales. And then we went to a friends and family round, and people were open for sure. It was actually fairly easy. And right now we're doing a revenue sharing model, so no equity, but getting paid back a nice return on our revenue.
Excellent.
So yeah, our VCFO, she works with a lot of natural food companies, and actually. Which is great, and it's really important to take a look at how you do that, because our friends at Weller went out and raised millions and millions of dollars, right? They did it a completely different way than we have. So there's no one way. There's lots of different ways.
Right.
So
Ian, or go ahead, Joel.
Yeah. I mean, we had a few offers, but we only looking for opportunities that it's smart money, like something that come with strategic partnership or whatever, not just benefits to the money. So
Sure.
but there is many offers out there.
Excellent. Go ahead, Ian.
So having raised like $100-something million in the last 7 years, and I, again, as the guy who grew up poor in Appalachia, that seems like a lot of money, but it's really not. Having talked to a lot of people who've raised billions, it's not that much money, but it's fungible. So I think to Joel's point, the money is there. And it last year kind of dried up a little bit beyond the friends and family when you were looking to, institutional investors. But I think if you are able to, and you're looking to raise money, find that strategic partner who can be there with you through this. And that's what we did with the NASDAQ company, Coffee Holding Company. We gave them a minority stake in our beverage company. We got their distribution. We got their manufacturing. So we're piggybacking off of them, but we're also then doing formulation of other beverages with them. And then that allows us, with that kind of relationship, to leverage the capital market, right? Because it's not that they're betting, wholly on us. They're betting on the NASDAQ, company that's, fully audited and they have to report every quarter. So, and we operate that way already, because our thought process is, for our investors, we want to have, full transparency. Transparency is truth. If you can't be transparent with your investors, you're going to have a problem. And so all of our time going into raising capital starts with a business plan, pro forma. Make sure that we're actually really thinking through this. Like, why are we asking for this capital? It's not just like for salaries for me or somebody else. It's like, we need equipment, we need operating capital, we need to do X, Y, and Z, and we need to be able to provide that to the investor who's investing with us, be they a public company or a private citizen. It's fiduciarily for me. I have a responsibility to them as much as I do to my partners, and you have to take it very, very seriously, or you're going to be bound for failure.
Yep. So we're wrapping up here. I'd like to go to Q&A. Does anybody have any questions for any of the panelists here about what you heard? Any more clarification points? We can probably take 2 or 3 questions if anybody has any. Easy peasy. Yes, go ahead.
CBR, I think it is, right? You said?
CBG.
CBG and the CBN. Can you just, is there a fundamental difference between that and CBD?
Anybody want to take kind of go ahead, that's probably Blair.
For Delta 8 specifically?
Yeah, that one mostly.
Yeah, so it's very gray. even though, I mean, the FDA DEA has said that it's illegal, even though for the last 30, 40 years, Delta 9 has been their go-to thing. And now they're all of a sudden, oh yeah, we mean all tetrahydrocannabinols. So even though they said that it's illegal, they said it's open for discussion. So that's very gray. You're going to have to talk to your local law enforcement officers or anything like that just to see how cool they are with it. But I would say it's a really good thing to get into. So I've got a product and everything that I've made for, a couple people just to see if it'll work out. My mom loves it. So she takes a teaspoon and a half at night and it helps her sleep. So go from there. The beverage could also, I have it in a lemonade and a watermelon type of beverage. You could take the same stuff that works for a month with my mom and share it among 4 people and have a good time. So it can go either way.
I know from our perspective, operating in the wholesale market, it's, Delta 8 has really rebounded the CBD wholesale arena and prices have started going up big time. I think we are out of time, but I would definitely 100% look into the Delta 8 market and get involved. But as Blair said, it's there's some legalities around that, so check with your attorney. Do you have one last thing, or we got to wrap? Are we wrapping? Okay, one more.
I was going to say, I'm more cautious on Delta 8. I think the Congress is going to come in and squash it like a bug, because when we pushed for and we won the right to have hemp be legalized and treated as an agricultural commodity, one of the foremost arguments we made at Congress and in front of all the legislatures was, this is non-intoxicating. And so now I get it, I understand it, but if you want to get high, go buy marijuana. Go buy marijuana. It is an interesting use of the chemical. I appreciate it, but I think it's going to be short-lived. And get into it if you want, but be prepared for it to end relatively quickly.
Yeah. I think all the D8, D9s, D10s will all be wrapped together at some point. So thank you guys for attending. Really appreciate you guys hearing us out, and hopefully it was helpful. Thank you to the panelists as well.